for the establishment of an audit function by the board. So what is the expectation that society has in giving such significance to internal auditors? What is it that society expects of you? So they want you, society wants you, but they perceive you differently. So let's look at how we can manage our stakeholders in order that we get them on board. But before we do that, I would like to find out, do you have a question for me? And whether you have, and I would like somebody to tell me what they have picked, what they have gathered from what we have done so far. Maybe Michael Obing? Do you have a question, Michael, or your understanding of what I've shared so far? Michael? I'm picking on Michael, but if there's anybody else, Israel, Goka Joseph, Christiana Wayne, any of you, what have you learned so far?
So if I may have a go.
Yes, Joseph.
Yeah, so far I've gotten that internal audit function is important. And
yes,
for somebody like you who has experienced internal audit offerings, you appreciate what internal audit brings to the table. However, out there are still other stakeholders that have a different view about internal audit. And those views tend not to be, or happen not to be, very positive views. Even with that, society in general appreciates the value of internal audit. And that is why in the case of Ghana, we have that codified in a statute like the Public Financial Management Act, which requires the services of internal audit. So for that reason, as auditors, we then need to be mindful of the view that society or stakeholders have of us and see how we can make that view a positive one so that our contribution can be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Esther put something in which I'm not seeing now. And then Samuel says, who you are is how you will be addressed. In fact, in Chi, in Akan, there is a saying that said the talk. So if society sees value in internal audit, the internal audit function, and we, the internal auditors, see value in ourselves, how come as stakeholders sometimes don't see the value that we see? So I want to submit that effectiveness in the internal audit function involves working closely with others, both in terms of obtaining information and also in terms of reporting, among other things. So how you obtain information from the public, from your stakeholders, and how you give information, how you even report it, helps people to see the value that you bring. So let's look quickly at some examples of your stakeholders. So clearly the internal audit function is meant as a check on the way roles and functions are performed in the corporate world and national institutions. By ensuring compliance with what is required of the various actors, the whole organization is expected to live up to its mandate and thus achieve the public good that it was established for. This is what value creation and protection are about, and your vision appropriately captures this. However, it might seem strange that the value of the internal audit function is not readily appreciated by everyone. There are even misconceptions that get in the way of effective work by internal auditors. So we need to address this question by looking at the various stakeholder segments that the internal auditor is engaged with and in the course of delivering on his or her responsibilities. I remember once we increased salaries in my organization. When we did it, we didn't put letters on personnel files that these salaries had been increased. Then the auditors came and they said there was no proof that the staff received the money. How would, no, we're not sharing a presentation. Somebody is asking, am I sharing a presentation? I'm just sharing headings of my discussion. I could have been very angry. At first I thought, oh, why would they think that I would lie? But in discussion with the auditors, I came to appreciate that even for the staff themselves, it is proof that they got that increase. For tax purposes, it is good that that is seen. And therefore, the value that I got out of it is something that, I asked for to be given. We have to be able to get our stakeholders to understand what we do. We need to address this question by looking at the different stakeholder segments and their interests. And when you are doing this, you have to consider communication, because in dealing with stakeholder management, you have to map out your stakeholders, understand their interest, and communication is used in drawing out stakeholder interests. Once you have done that, you have to build relationships with the stakeholders. But people will have a relationship with you only when you have a good reputation. And remember that your reputation is built over time. So communication helps you to align with your stakeholders. There is therefore no doubt about the role that communication plays in building and sustaining relationships with your stakeholders. And I want to briefly illustrate this. To start with, of course, you must know your stakeholders, both internal and external. So let us take staff, for instance. They are the lifeblood of the organization. Therefore, their collaboration is essential for success, for the success of the internal audit function. You take information from them. So you have to have a good relationship with them. Yet, as they engage in their day-to-day functions in the organization, they may not be thinking of the requirements of the internal auditor or what they really, how they should relate to the internal auditor. This can only be when the internal auditor makes it clear to them. A lot of the time, the internal auditor is seen as an okra mouth, a witch hunting person, because Unfortunately, sometimes it would appear that the internal auditor forgets that the staff member is their stakeholder as well, and therefore tend to focus on the CEO, the board, etc. Staff members need to appreciate the benefits of the role of the internal auditor and integrate it into their ongoing work, just as the internal auditor also appreciates the relevance of the staff member and appreciate and integrate that knowledge and appreciation into their ongoing work. Otherwise, staff may see the internal auditor as just a roadblock on their path, instead of a facilitator in enhancing organizational performance. So you can sell the internal audit function to staff not as coming to inspect, but as enhancing performance to bring productivity and profitability, which will result in something better in their account and in their pocket. So if they see you as somebody who helps to bring profitability to the organization and to them, you will see that they listen to you and work with you better. I like an advert by an organization that sells soap. And what they do is they say, allow your children to go and play in the dirt. By doing that, they discover things and become the engineers and doctors that you want them to be. So what they are selling to you is your aspiration for your child to become a doctor or an engineer. But in the end, they tell you that even when they go out and play and their clothes become dirty, you can use my soap to wash. So they sell you something that is beneficial to you. So communication helps you to establish common ground with your stakeholders. So in the end, you will do your policing work as they see, but they don't see it as such. They may see it, they may give it another fee, which is a profitability job that you are doing. Then let's look at management. As management seek to work, as they seek to manage the work of staff in order to realize organizational goals, they will need to see the internal auditor as an ally in ensuring performance that is consistent with the goals and standards set in the organization. A manager's work will be assessed by the board, shareholders, and all that. So if the internal auditor sells their function to the manager as, look, I am your ally to ensure that in the end, you are perceived as having delivered effectively, you become their friend. And this you can do through effective communication. So through effective communication, you can help management to appreciate how the audit function facilitates their best to achieve effective performance, and not rather see the internal auditor as interfering with the smooth flow of work, or someone who is always eager to find wrongdoing at the least provocation. So a manager will not tell staff, I would have done it all. But you know, the internal audit people, they'll give you an audit query. And me, I don't